Welcome to ArtSpeak University, and we are going to jump back in here. This is part 2 of a 2-part class, ArtSpeak University class, on how to use the messaging blueprint. Now, just to give some background here, that's part of what we do as part of our process and a branding process. We're going to start with messaging before we try and figure out things like logos or fonts or any of that. We're going to start with messaging and go through the discovery process and some research on demographics and all of that. And we're going to craft what we call a messaging blueprint, which contains a lot of information about who are you trying to reach, and what is it going to take? What is the strategy? What are the words? What is the message that we're going to use to communicate with that audience and specify a lot of those things? Now, what you'll notice today is that we've got a heavy Lord of the Rings theme going on. Just a disclaimer, that's just for fun. That doesn't relate in any way to the messaging blueprint or our process. It's just part of just fun today. And so, but I'm going to toss it to Uriah and Cory to talk about how to use that messaging blueprint. Once you use it, how do you use it in your everyday life?
All right. Coolio. So yes. Awesome. This is part 2, one doc to rule them all. Session 2 is the precious. Tell us more about the precious, Cory.
Yeah, so just following up on what Kirk just said, messaging blueprint, once again, it's got the three pieces in it. It's got who you are, who you're called to reach, and then the third part is the messaging. Messaging is the promise that you're making to the people who don't know you yet. What are you promising people? And you know, I think every brand should have it. My favorite brand promise right now is Universal Studios. Let yourself whoa. That's a lot of fun. Now, so that's a brand promise, but what happens if everybody else that's working on that marketing campaign forgets what they've promised people? And it's no longer a whoa experience. That means people watch the commercial, they go to Universal, and they don't get what they expected. And I think what happens a lot of times is you've got messaging and you don't refer back to it. I think that happens for us who are working with clients, because we get so into the weeds that we forget to go back to the beginning. And then it happens also with churches. They've got their they've established some stuff years ago, and they've forgotten what they've said that they're promising. It might even be on the top of their website, but they've just forgotten. So inside the messaging blueprint, if you just go back to it, there are a bunch of strategy ideas, marketing ideas, you know, program ideas, all kinds of stuff. And so we talked a lot about that last week, sort of rooting in the who you are part. But now we're going to look at the promise, and we're going to look at the promises that you've made. So just to get us started, in the chat, could you write the name of a brand that you're working with right now? It can be a client, it can be the church that you work for, it could be a department inside your church. So if you work a lot with children's ministry, write our children's ministry in there, or whatever the name of that children's ministry program is. And we're just going to put it in the back of our minds for the rest of this talk. Okay? Okay, so starting off, just a reminder, the communication triangle. Uriah, you want to just walk through this one more time?
Absolutely. So I'll try to do it as fast as I can without getting too in the weeds. But so the communication triangle is a framework that we use here at ArtSpeak, originally developed by, I believe, Phil Bodle in his book, Rethinking Communication. Great read. And so the idea is that there are 3 points of the triangle. You have audience, organization, and then shared win. So audience is who we're trying to reach. Organization is us, if we're the organization. And then the shared win is, where do our hopes and dreams converge? And so we use this to think through the organization's journey. So if we're the organization, or think about your church or the kids ministry you're working with, if we'll keep going with that, what is the hope and dream, which is usually the mission and vision. So what are we trying to accomplish as an organization? What are our goals? What are our values that are going to get us there? And then the audience is, they have a journey too. What are their hopes? What are they hoping to get there? And so on both of those journeys, there are cracks, there are gaps that we need to bridge. And then between organization and audience, there's the reputation gap. So we use this to kind of establish who are we talking to, and how are we talking to them in a way that is intuitively engaging for them, that means something for them. And so that's what we're going to focus on today, which is the shared win, which is Mount Doom. Got to drop the ring in. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
All right.
Some people don't, or
Some people don't. That's
people
okay,
don't care.
because we didn't think of you as our audience, and I'm sorry. So we failed at our communication triangle here. So the shared win is the recommended message that a brand uses to reach an audience. So it's made up of a bunch of parts we're going to talk about today, and it features the promises a brand is making in direct relationship to what we know about their audience. All right. So Cory, you want to go through this first part of it?
Yeah. So yeah, brand promise, it's that primary value proposition. It can be your tagline. There is a Venn diagram somewhere that somebody needs to make between what a tagline is and what a brand promise is. But a brand promise is your primary value proposition. Basically, the entire brand is saying this one thing. For ArtSpeak, it's reach people. That's what we promise the brands that we work with. Great Austin church, live wide awake. That's what they're promising people. It's something that exists in the audience. It's what the audience wants, but it's also what the church wants for people. And another way to think of a brand promise is it is the starting place. If you're a church or a ministry, it is where you start with the gospel. There are lots of starting places. There are lots of places to say welcome. And so a brand promise is your welcome place. I saw Tanya from CLC's on the call. Jana or Libby or Tanya, can you remind me brand promise for CLC, which I love?
Ordinary people, extraordinary purpose.
Yes.
Yeah, ordinary people, extraordinary purpose. You're invited, right?
Correct.
Or did we get rid of the you're invited? Okay. So yeah, that's where we start with where we're going to start sharing the gospel. There's a whole lot more to communicate, but that's our starting point. Okay, so check out this Richmond church. Their brand promise, and a brand promise is always rooted in what we think is sort of at the core of both the brand itself, but also a core hope for the people that they're reaching. So they helped us narrow down. Richmond it's a southern town, very traditional. Mike Hamilton and I got to talk with a server there, and the first thing that they told us about the area was where you could get expensive drugs and where you could get cheap drugs. So maybe that says more about Mike and I than the area, but as we talked to the pastor there, we were like, no, massive drug problem. So we identified that root hope of those people in Richmond was, I want to help dealing with my past and growing into someone who can sustain positive forward momentum. And then the fear is, I don't want to stay stuck in trauma, addiction, tradition, anxiety, or anything else. And then sort of at the root, the challenge, the thing that they're trying to overcome when you think about that side of the triangle was, I'm stuck in addiction and tradition in my thinking, in my faith, in my life. What do I do? And so what this church in Richmond decided to root in was welcome home, now let's go. So they had been using the phrase welcome home, but the pastor almost always said, let's go is his message to people. So putting the two together, it was come in and rest, and now let's move forward together. So some questions for you. Give me a lead magnet. Oh, well, yeah, let's start with this. What's the single problem this brand solves? Every brand solves one clear problem. What is it? Anybody, you put in Slack or just unmute and tell me what you think.
Can you rephrase the, wait, I don't understand.
So what is the single problem this brand solves? So with welcome home, let's go. What is the issue that they're solving for their audience?
It's motivating their people. It's motivating their people to take that next step and then find their purpose.
Yeah. If you are stuck, go to this church. They're going to welcome you in like family and then put you on a course. So give me some social media ideas. What would you like to see if you opened up Instagram on this church? Yeah, Andrew put a good good summary in, providing a place to feel secure so that you can go out and do. That's exactly right.
So I see Andrew's dropping some stuff in
Yeah.
photos of what makes it feel like home.
Mm-hmm.
Warm, homey images.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so warm, homey images, but also showing them people doing things as well. So you need that contrast of home, yet we're leaving home as a family to do things that impact our community, that are moving our life forward. Videos of staff pumping people up, encouraging social audience, motivational encouragement. Yep, belonging. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I would, encouraging. I would also not like to see like anything that feels really sleepy. Language that kind of just feels like comforting. I'm sure there has to be some comforting feel to it. Question for you. Well, actually, we should probably move on, shouldn't we, Uriah? I've got more thoughts here.
Another thing recommending against, I would say, I saw verses that are encouraging. Now you can get stuck in verses in the church world. So you would use verses that have that contrast, like some about belonging in the family of God, those kind of things, but then also the let's move forward, let's get past this kind of thing. And then visually, it would be more, not aggressive is the wrong word, but it would be more of a kind of, pump you up. That was the words. So Andrew said, recommend against too many event promo posts and just focus on consideration and relationship development. That's really good.
That's fantastic.
Right.
Just real quick before we go on, a great lead magnet for them would be 5 ideas to get unstuck and start moving. You know, just anything that sort of meets those two places. And it can be a very soft invitation to church. But like I said, brand promise is where you're going to start with the gospel. So anyway.
And we had one more recommendation against too many platform or stage photos, which I thought was really cool. So you'd want those as a part of the movement, that there's something happening, but you wouldn't want too many. So that's really good. Thanks, Jared, for that. All right, next piece is value propositions. I can cover this if you want, Cory. So these are, brand promise is the main umbrella one, and so everything from that is hitting all the different marks of that. So if we're thinking about the previous one, welcome home, and then now let's go, you might break it up into different ones that are about kind of home, feeling comforted, being a part, belonging, and then ones that are about action and service and all that kind of stuff. That might be a way you do it. So if you engage with the brand, this is what you will get. That's what value propositions are at their base. So gain creators, pain relievers are products and services. So gain creators, what do you gain from this? The value, the perceived value, and their promises that a brand is making in a way that directly correlates to the fears and hopes that people are seeing. So I'm going to go back to the brand promise, where we have root hopes, root fears, and root challenges. So there are additional hopes and fears that we walk through. That's where value. That's how we at ArtSpeak generate value propositions.
And real quick, those three ideas: gain creators, pain relievers, products and services. So a common mistake for a value proposition is to say you are loved. That's not a value proposition. That's an aphorism. It's a nice thought, but experience love would be a value proposition. So this is a cool Tulsa church that we got to work with earlier this year. Here are 4 value propositions from them. Find wide open doors and hearts. Meet your support system. Curiosity encouraged, questions welcomed. Where compassion gets the final word. So those are our 4, just four of their value propositions. And I think Jana wrote all those and did a really great job. Okay, so looking at these, some questions. Imagine some social ads for this brand. What's a good idea? How would you advertise this brand? And maybe Uriah, do you want to go back to that screen?
Yes, absolutely.
So people can reference, sorry.
So again, if we're ideating ads, or if you don't think in the realm of ads, just how would you talk about this? What graphics would come to mind for these value propositions? Whatever realm you work in, video or whatever, just think about how you would go about promoting that. I think ads might be a hang up for some people. So
yeah,
how would you talk about find wide open doors and hearts, and everything below those are sub points that kind of bolster it. So we have anything that prompts conversation. Yeah, so that might be maybe the curiosity encouraged, questions welcome would be a great one to start conversation, where you might link that to, I don't know, there's much smarter people than me here, but you might link that to a series on the biggest questions from the Bible, why are there still giants after the flood? That's a really deep one, a goofy one, but if the classic one is if God is good, why do bad things happen? And you could relate an ad series to that question, because we're inviting the curiosity, we're inviting questions versus kind of pushing them away. So we have graphics with value props as text on the graphic, copy with CTA with a call to action to learn more about the services that complement these value props. And the messenger ads, to start convo around curiosity. Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I loved one of we did a post recently for Westover Hills Church, and I think it was Bria who designed it. If not, I'm sorry for the wrong shout out. But the design itself was, it was like a picture of a person texting on their phone, but what was in the center of the screen was what you typically see on Instagram when someone posts a question that you can leave a response to, and then they share the responses of anyone who tuned in and gave a question. When I see meet your support system, that's one idea that comes to mind, is a graphic that show they asks a question via that send us in a question kind of Instagram form factor, because what that communicates to me is when I see the value proposition meet your support system, I think of I've got questions that I would love answers to, right? That's, if you're going to be my support system, that's what I'm expecting from you, is to give me some answers to stuff. So you could design something around giving people answers. How can you capture visually? And one of the current ways of doing that nowadays is kind of those Instagram question and answer feature. So I thought the way we leveraged that for Westover was really smart, and I could see something similar working well for a meet your support system message.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I like Andrew's lead gen adds 3 ways to build a healthy support system. Jackson just providing lots of value with no expectation. Yeah, do you imagine just filling up a social feed in ways that support these 4 promises? That would be something worth following, whether or not you're a member of that church.
Yeah, and I think that to that point, I think that's the goal. It's to really make sure that the content, the stuff we're doing is actually drawing people and it's valuable to them. So, all right. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Just thinking about like physical spaces too, kind of language like this. If I saw all that on social, but then I showed up at a building that, you know, there's no chairs in the lobby, there's no place to interact with people, and it feels very, you know, rushed or minimal, or it doesn't feel comfortable at all, there's going to be some dissonance there. So I think sometimes this can all be really good for messaging externally, but I think also there needs to be this aspect too of how are these ideas and concepts that we're communicating with played out in physical space, in the actual place we're going to interact in and be in and exist in as a church. You know?
That's so good.
That Richmond church, Welcome Home, Now Let's Go. It is a very, very welcoming place, but they're in the middle of a building redesign. And we're working with those, with that architectural firm to help them put language around what they're trying to do with the space. Right now, the space is, and you know, the space is very black, and they're looking for ways to open it up so it feels more than just this warm place where you kind of settle in, but more that you're pushed forward a little bit.
Yeah, and to Jared, what you said, I think that's really important too, because we're making these promises, right? That's what these are about. So then how do we make sure that we're meeting those promises? And that's the internal challenge for any organization, where a lot of these can be aspirational, where we're not quite there yet, but this is a clear direction to move in, that we need to make sure that these promises are met when people show up or they engage with us, wherever we may be digitally or physically. So good stuff.
I agree, Jared. I think if churches think through this, messaging doesn't stop at the invitation, but it opens the conversation to how do we actually fulfill ministry. So that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think it also goes back to every bit of communication, or everything you do, everything you have communicates, and it's going to add to the experience. So it's thinking about the whole experience in that way too.
Good stuff. All right, I'll move to this last one because it's just more ideating. So what brand are you working with right now? So you had that in your head. So what primary problem does it solve? What promises does it make? How can you help them keep their promises? So if you are working with one of our wonderful people at ArtSpeak, you know, maybe there's ways that you as an art director or designer or writer can be, maybe this kind of opens your mind again, getting out of the weeds a little bit, to think about how could you help them keep their promises from beginning to end. So if you guys want to drop in the chat, or you guys just want to talk out loud about your specific who you're working with right now, and then how you think, you know, what ideas are sparked if you think about their messaging or what they're promising or who their audience is, and how you can help them. And remember that this talk is called One Doc to Rule Them All. So it's going back to the messaging blueprint in terms of, you know, there's endless things to mine from there, more than the mines of Moria. There's plenty to pull from there. Maybe some mithril. So
well done, Uriah. Well done.
But I see some people typing. But just thinking, no, this is the goal. This is for us as the creatives working with this messaging. This is really where we can start to be strategic, be consultants, Even if you're working with your own church and you're on the internal team, you know, thinking ahead and thinking about how can I ensure or help push forward these promises that we have on the website. I don't know if any of you guys have been on a website or interacted with someone on social media or a brand on social media, and the initial engagement is like, oh, this is amazing. But then you go to either the website or you show up in person or you get on a call, and the experience totally shifts and everything that you felt is gone. That's what we're trying to avoid. I can't stand when that happens, because what happens? You want to run away because you're like, this isn't what you promised. I'm gone. You know? So great. So Jared had one, he's working with a group of songwriters and worship leaders. Do you want to tell us about that, Jared?
Yeah, I'll try to be quick. I know we're short on time, but these guys, they're Japanese, and they're in Japan. And so the way they talked to me about this brand when we started is, imagine if you go to church on Sunday morning and all the worship music you sing was originally in Russian and it's been translated. And so the musicality is going to be wrong, or it's going to feel different than your culture. And the translation might not be perfect and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's how Japanese people experience worship most of the time. It's either in English or maybe Chinese or even, you know, all those others. So they're writing native Japanese worship music for churches to use and giving it out free, as a free resource. And I wish they would want to work on messaging, because I feel like the website that we've created and everything is missing this really key aspect of creating that felt need and communicating that value that they're bringing to this. I mean, there is a need in the church in Japan. So
You just told us what the primary problem they're solving is. It's not on their website yet.
Yeah.
It needs
for sure.
to be in the hero.
Yeah.
What it is they're doing and what the value is.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so cool. So anybody have any ideas for them? Just kind of off the top of your head? Just like, what could a lead gen or an ad, or, you know, what should they be showing? Because I went to their website. I can't read Japanese, so I'm already at a loss. But
yeah, that's an added complexity of the whole thing, is it's different language. But.
Well, there's also, I think Keith and Kristen Getty do this really well right now. They're filling a very specific desire in the church, which is for modern hymns. There are other people who do it, but the things that they develop around it, songbooks, and it looks like these guys have a whole bunch of songbooks. Like if I were in their position, if I was in a worship leader position in Japan, I would definitely download a brand new songbook. But if I download that songbook and I don't have it, you as the worship team don't have any way of following up with me, then what happens? Like nothing. And I forget about you, or I remember you 2 years later. I actually think it's a service to have an email opt-in on your site. I want to know about you. I want to know what's going on. I think that's one way you can serve people, is to give them an opportunity to opt in.
That's
Anybody
awesome.
else want to redo this brand for them? Thinking, especially messaging and strategy?
All right. Well, if you have any ideas, you can send them to Jared. But awesome. So just ending here, this is the end of the journey. But one doc to rule them all, one doc to guide them, one doc to inspire them all, and more clarity bring them to reach more people where the shadows lie. So that is it for. Thank you for enduring our Lord of the Rings nerddom. It will be over on the next ArtSpeak University. But thank you all for the opportunity to go through this all, and it's been an absolute blast. So we'll see you guys on the next one, and it will not be Lord of the Rings themed unless they allow me to do it again.
Thank you, Uriah. Thank you, Cory. Thank you, everybody. Fantastic stuff. The discussion is ongoing in the ArtSpeak University Slack channel in the community. So come join our conversation there, and we'll keep this ideation and conversation going. Until next time.
All
See you
right,
guys later.
everybody.